Welcome to the MicroMD EMR Chart Overview Training Session. The MicroMD EMR chart is meant to act similar to a paper patient chart. It displays the patient demographics, allows you to enter all the patient's medical information as discrete data, and contains the encounters that have been entered for the patient. To open a patient chart, you can click on the Chart tab from the desktop of the EMR, click on Chart in the toolbar in the top left corner of the EMR, or click on the File folder icon also in the toolbar. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Chart tab, which brings up the search screen. Here you can choose how to search for the patient from the Based On drop-down menu. You can search by last name, first name, date of birth, or any of these other options. In the search field, keep in mind that in the EMR you must have a minimum of 2 characters, or you can type the % twice and click search in order to bring up the entire list of all your patients in the EMR. I'm going to go ahead and type in part of the patient's last name, a comma, and the first initial. It opens into my patient's chart. Once into the chart, you can see that it's broken down into several areas. You'll find the patient's name, bolded and in all caps, the gender, the age, and the date of birth. A good way to verify that you are in fact in the correct chart. In the top left corner, you're going to find the chart tools. These are shortcuts to different tools that one could utilize in the EMR. The available items in the chart tools may vary from user to user based on their roles and functions that have been assigned to them in the EMR Manager. Next, you're going to find 4 tabs which further breaks down the EMR into separate areas. The first tab is the demographics, where you'll find the patient demographic details, their insurance information, pharmacies the patient might use, providers and specialists that the patient may see, health information access, where one can limit access from another user in the EMR for this particular patient's chart, contacts, and the change history. The next tab is the Medical Information tab, where all the patient's medical information will be found. This area also is broken down into sections, which includes possibly a common list, medical, histories, orders, specialties, health maintenance, and miscellaneous. There's also the women's health section, which will display only when the chart is a female patient's chart. The Medical Information Navigator display can be changed according to the needs of a practice. For example, a specialty practice may not need to see health maintenance or women's health or other categories. To customize this area, a user can click on the Gear tool to access the Medical Information Chart Navigator Manager. This screen allows a user to create a common list of their most commonly used categories, or a practice can create a navigator template in the EMR Manager, which would allow all the users to display the medical information with the items they would use in their own practice. They could also rename these categories if they wish. To create this template in the EMR Manager, the administrator would go to the Reference Lists, Customizable Lists, Medical Info Category Titles. So this is where they could rename. So if they wish to edit a description, add an additional category or description, or even hide one of these descriptions. So if they don't ever need to use women's health, they could actually hide that category. This is also where they would create the new Navigator template, and all they would do is click on the New button, and they could create the template name with a description. So I've already created one called My Medical Info Template, and you can see that they can choose just the items that they wish to view in their medical information in a patient's chart, and even categorize them accordingly. So when they choose an item, so let's just pull over asthma history, you can see that it allows them to choose which category that item should go into. Once the template has been created, I'm going to go ahead and minimize this and go back to the EMR, and we'll go back into our search book. That template will display in the drop-down list next to Navigator template. So if I choose My Medical Info Template and say OK, you can see that there are fewer items now in the Chart Navigator. Also, when I click on each category, it's only displaying the items that I want to display for my practice. The next tab in the chart is the Summary tab, which primarily is used to view either a brief or an expanded list of patient encounters. The expanded just kind of expands out and shows you any medications that were prescribed during that encounter, the assessments, the chief complaint, so just kind of gives you an expanded view. The patient overview is the dashboard. So if a provider or user wishes to see the dashboard listed in this area, they can have a dashboard defaulted, or they can also choose a different one on the fly. So if I came here and I said I want to see the hypertension dashboard, you can see how it changes to that different dashboard. The list in the summary would also include any pre-encounters, or if the patient had any revised encounters on the chart, they would also be displayed in this area. A user has the option to view a summary of additional patient activities by clicking on the Filter button. And let's say we also want to see any prescription requests, prescriptions sent, phone messages, and when I say OK, you can see that now the list includes those items. So we do have prescription requests on this patient's chart. Scrolling down, you can see that those are just encounters. A user can default if they want to see additional items, so they don't have to always come in here and click on those items. If they want to default them, up under Tools and User Preferences, Chart Summary Options, they can choose from here what else they would like to see in the summary area of a patient's chart. Also remember that you need to check the pre-encounter button and the revised encounter button in order for those to display in this area. Now, the next item, if I click on Encounter, you can see that once I double-clicked on that encounter to open it, it moved me from the Summary tab to the Encounter tab. So this is that encounter that I just opened up, where a user can now access either the Admin button or the View button. Now these buttons also might change depending on the status of the encounter. If it's the provider who still needs to sign this encounter, the Admin button would actually say Sign. It takes you to the same area, that being the billing screen of the encounter. And the View button may say Edit if it's the person who needs to go back and edit the encounter. Right now it says View, and I would be back inside the encounter. I also have the ability on this screen to view as discrete or view as text. So if I click on View as discrete, you can see the way it changes the view. From the encounter area, I can also add an encounter note or just view an encounter note that's already been added, the annotations, and access the medical information of a patient's chart. And finally, let's take a look at the icons at the top of a patient's chart. And we're going to start with the bell. This bell houses the reminders that are attached to the patient. When you click on it, it opens the Reminder Manager, where you would see any reminders, whether they're active, or you can click on the box to show the future reminders. You can also add, edit, delete, mark as done, or print reminders. And let's just quickly add a reminder. And I'm going to leave it activated for today instead of as a future reminder. When you have an active reminder on the chart, I'm going to go out of the chart and back in so that it holds the changes. You can see that now the bell is swaying. When the bell is swaying or moving back and forth, you know that there's an active reminder on the chart. So if I click on that, you would be able to view the reminder. So I can double click on that and I can see the reminder message. If I'm done with it, I can just simply mark as done. And once I close the patient's chart at that point and come back in, the bell would cease to move. The next icon, and you don't see it yet, but let's go into allergies and add, and I'm going to add a drug allergy. So we'll say the patient's allergic to penicillin. The alert box, any place that you see the alert box in the system, so all the medical information, the history items, you would have the ability to add an alert to the patient's chart. I'm just going to go ahead and say that the patient had a severe allergy to anaphylaxis. So the box is checked, and again, if I go out of the chart and come back in, now the siren icon is displayed. If I click on that, you would be able to see any alert that is listed in the patient's chart. So that penicillin allergy I added, because it was marked as an alert, it's in this list, and the siren displays in the chart. The next icons, and again, let's go over to patient groups, and I'm going to add this patient to several patient groups. So the patient has asthma, maybe they have GERD, and obesity. So by adding the patient groups to the chart, it now displays the little patient group colored boxes. If I would like to see what all these boxes mean, I could click on any one of these three, and I could get a more detailed list of what groups this patient belongs to. So patient can belong to multiple groups. 5 would display, and any additional groups, you'd have to click on one of them to see the remaining groups that the patient belongs to. And finally, the red X is simply to close the chart. This concludes the MicroMD EMR Chart Overview Training Tutorial.